Hi everyone! Before we get into this audiobook, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit the subscribe button and drop a like. It helps me out a lot as well as contributes a lot to the channel. Now, let's get into the story. I hope you enjoy. The air of the Stone Haven Pack lands always carried a scent of ancient forests and untamed wildness, a symphony of pine and damp earth, of distant river and the musky warmth of wolf fur. For Lyra, it was the breath of home, a comfort woven into the very fabric of her being. She was a child of the moon, raised on stories of the high priestesses of old, women who could commune with the spirits of the land, whose bloodlines hummed with a unique resonance, a harmony with the natural world that set them apart. And among these tales, one loomed largest, the legend of the Crimson Curse. Generations ago, a dark magic had befallen the first Alpha of the Stone Haven, a curse that twisted his wolf form, making his eyes glow with a malevolent crimson light, robbing him of reason and turning him into a destructive force during the full moon. Each succeeding Alpha inherited a fragment of this affliction, a progressively weakening echo, but an echo nonetheless that threatened to consume their very spirit. It never manifested in the same way, sometimes a berserker rage, other times a consuming despair, but always, always, those accursed crimson eyes. Lyra's lineage, the daughters of the ancient priestesses, were whispered to be the only ones capable of breaking it, their pure connection to the lunar energies the sole key. And for 22 years, that prophecy had been Lyra's unwavering destiny. She was the latest in a long line, chosen by tradition, her life meticulously shaped for this single, monumental purpose. Every lesson, every ritual, every quiet moment of reflection under the silver gaze of the moon was a step towards that ultimate act of salvation. Her own connection to the spiritual realm was undeniable, a gentle hum beneath her skin that manifested as an innate understanding of herbs, a calming presence that soothed agitated pack members, and a sensitivity to the subtle shifts in the earth's energies. She spent her days tending to the pack's infirm, preparing remedies in the healer's hut, her hands stained with the vibrant hues of crushed berries and dried roots. Yet, beneath this quiet, nurturing exterior beat the heart of a warrior, forged by the gravity of her calling. She understood the weight of expectation, the hopes of an entire pack resting on her slender shoulders. Failure was not an option. It was a concept alien to her purpose. The current Alpha, Rhys, was a formidable leader, even with the shadow of the curse looming over him. He possessed a commanding presence, his broad shoulders and lean physique speaking of inherent strength, his dark hair often falling across eyes the color of a stormy sea. During his lucid moments, his leadership was marked by wisdom and unwavering loyalty to his pack. His laughter, deep and resonant, could lift the spirits of the entire community, and his rare, gentle smiles could thaw even the coldest fear. But during a lunar peak, a restlessness would settle over him, his movements becoming sharper, his voice lower, the storm within brewing. It was in these times that Lyra saw glimpses of the crimson-eyed monster, a flicker of red in his otherwise clear eyes, a primal growl rumbling deep in his chest. The curse hadn't yet fully consumed him, but it gnawed at his edges, threatening to drag him down into an abyss of mindless rage. He was disciplined, unyielding, fighting the insidious creep of the malevolent energy with every fiber of his being. Lyra admired his strength, but also saw the profound weariness etched around his eyes, the silent battle he waged daily. He was more than just a duty. He was a person, a leader who bore an unbearable burden, and the thought of freeing him from it filled her with a powerful, desperate longing. She knew that once the curse was broken, their paths were destined to intertwine in a deeper bond. She would become his Luna, his mate, the other half of his soul. A destiny she both accepted and, in quieter moments, yearned for with a tender hope. The day of the ritual dawned, cloaked in a misty veil. A heavy dew clung to the ancient oak trees that ringed the sacred clearing, their gnarled branches reaching like skeletal fingers towards the overcast sky. The air, usually vibrant with the sounds of the pack, was hushed, almost reverent, as if nature itself held its breath in anticipation. Lyra felt a kaleidoscope of emotions churning within her. A profound sense of purpose, a quiet fear, and an overwhelming surge of determination. This was it, the culmination of her entire life's preparation. The hopes of generations rested on her. She wore a simple, undyed linen tunic woven by the elder women of the pack, its soft fabric brushing against her skin like a second skin. Her long, dark hair, usually unbound, was braided intricately with strands of dried herbs, a traditional protective charm. Her hands, steady despite the frantic pulse in her wrists, carried a small, silver-bound book containing the ancient chants and a pouch filled with rare, luminescent herbs. Elder Phelan, the pack's venerable healer and Lyra's primary mentor, walked beside her, his face etched with the wisdom of centuries, his eyes twinkling with a mixture of solemnity and a quiet pride. He had guided her, taught her, prepared her for this moment, instilling in her the reverence for the spirits and the unwavering belief in her own innate power. The clearing, known as the Heartwood Sanctuary, was a circular space ringed by towering, ancient oaks, their roots sprawling like grasping claws across the moss-covered earth. In the center, a large, flat stone altar, weathered by countless moons, was bathed in the soft glow of burning sage and juniper, their fragrant smoke spiraling upwards, carrying prayers to the heavens. The scent was potent, cleansing, a purification for the momentous event. The entire pack was gathered around the perimeter, their faces a mosaic of hope, anxiety, and silent prayers. Their anticipation was a palpable force, a collective breath held in the cool morning air. Rhys stood beside the altar, his posture rigid, his usual commanding aura subtly softened by a deep vulnerability. His eyes, though clear now, held a flicker of the primal fear that haunted him, the dread of the approaching full moon and the monster it unleashed within. His beta, Gareth, a man of unwavering loyalty and fierce protectiveness, stood a respectful distance behind him, his own gaze fixed on his alpha with a mixture of concern and unwavering support. Lyra met Rhys's gaze across the smoky expanse, and in that fleeting moment, a silent understanding passed between them. A promise. A shared destiny. She was his hope. He was her purpose. Elder Phelan began the ritual, his voice a low, resonant chant that filled the clearing, weaving ancient words of power and supplication. Lyra followed his lead, her voice rising in harmony, steady and clear, carrying the weight of her conviction. She sprinkled the luminescent herbs over the altar, their dust shimmering in the faint light, and began the intricate hand movements, tracing patterns in the air, inviting the moon's energy, even veiled by clouds, to descend upon them. The air grew heavy, crackling with an unseen energy, as if the veil between worlds thinned. Rhys placed his hands on the cold altar stone, his jaw clenched, his muscles taut, bracing himself for the spiritual battle that would unfold within him. His breathing was deep, ragged, a visceral struggle. Lyra placed her own hands over his, feeling the tremor that ran through him, a resonance of the dark energy that afflicted his lineage. She closed her eyes, focusing her entire being, channeling her pure lunar energy, the accumulated power of generations, into his essence. The ancient chant intensified, becoming a powerful current that flowed through her, through Rhys, and into the very earth beneath them. A surge of pure, raw energy, cold and bright like moonlight on ice, coursed from Lyra's palms into Rhys. She felt the resistance, the dark, stagnant force coiled within him, pushing back, a malevolent presence fighting for its very existence. It was a vile, chilling energy, distinct from his own vibrant life force, a foreign entity festering within his soul. She pushed harder, pouring every ounce of her trained power, every fiber of her being, into breaking it, willing it to shatter, to dissipate into the ether, to release him. The strain was immense, a burning fire in her veins, a dizzying pressure behind her eyes. Her vision swam, the light from the sage blurring into shimmering halos. But then, something went horribly wrong. Instead of shattering, the dark energy recoiled, not vanishing, but seeking, searching, like a cornered beast seeking escape. It found the conduit, the pure, potent lunar channel that was Lyra. It rushed back towards her, not as an assault, but as a transfer, a seamless, terrifying migration. Lyra gasped, a choked sound lost in the chant. The cold, dark essence, alien and suffocating, slammed into her, not dissipating, but entering, settling deep within her own core, twisting around her pure energy, mingling with her very being. It was a chilling invasion, a desecration of her sacred purpose. A searing pain, unlike anything she had ever known, tore through her body, 1,000 needles of ice and fire piercing her flesh simultaneously. Her knees buckled, her hands losing their grip on Rhys's. Her vision swam, not with blurred light, but with a sudden, horrifying burst of crimson. The world seemed to tilt, the chanting fading into a distant roar, replaced by a strange, new hum in her blood, a dark, primal whisper that wasn't her own. She felt a profound violation, a desecration of her very essence. Rhys cried out, his voice laced with confusion and alarm. He felt the sudden release, the absence of the dark weight that had burdened him for so long. The lingering dread, the constant internal battle, had vanished. He felt lighter, clearer, more himself than he had ever been in his adult life. The relief was instantaneous, overwhelming. But then he saw Lyra. She swayed, clutching her chest, her body convulsing, her face contorted in a silent scream of agony. Her eyes, those beautiful, clear eyes, snapped open, and Rhys froze. They were not the soft, intelligent brown he knew. They were glowing, a vibrant, terrifying crimson, just like the curse's manifestation he had only ever glimpsed within himself. The air around her pulsed with a raw, dark energy, a malevolent aura that hadn't been there a moment ago. A guttural growl, deep and unsettling, tore from her throat, a sound utterly alien to her gentle nature, a sound that chilled him to the bone. Elder Phelan stumbled back, his eyes wide with horror, the chant dying on his lips. "No, it cannot be! The transfer, it was never meant to be a transfer." His voice was a guttural cry of disbelief and profound despair. The pack members recoiled, their faces shifting from hope to bewildered fear, then outright terror as Lyra's transformation accelerated. Her fingers elongated, her nails sharpening into claws. Her teeth, once perfectly human, grew, becoming predatory fangs. Her body convulsed, bones shifting and cracking with sickening pops. muscles bulging beneath her tunic, the linen shredded, unable to contain the rapid, monstrous change. A shimmering dark fur began to sprout from her skin, covering her in a thick midnight coat. The gentle Lyra, the healer, the savior, was becoming the very monster she was supposed to banish. Rhys, witnessing the horrifying metamorphosis, felt a surge of pure, unadulterated terror. The joy of his liberation was instantly overshadowed by a profound, soul-wrenching horror. The curse was gone from him, yes, but it was here, manifesting with an unprecedented ferocity, consuming the woman he was destined to protect. He had sworn to destroy this malevolence, to rid his pack of its ancient bane. And now it resided within Lyra, twisting her into the very embodiment of his lifelong enemy. He saw the crimson eyes that had haunted his nightmares, now staring out from her face. The irony was a bitter, metallic taste in his mouth, a cruel jest of fate. As the transformation completed, a massive, obsidian-furred wolf stood panting in the clearing, steam rising from its sleek coat, its form larger and more imposing than any wolf he had ever seen in the pack. It was a creature of terrifying beauty, built for speed and power, muscles rippling under the dark fur. But it was the eyes that held him captive. Two blazing orbs of malevolent crimson, radiating a raw, untamed fury. This was not a wolf of the Stone Haven pack, not with those eyes. This was the curse, manifested fully, unleashed through Lyra. A low, menacing growl ripped from the creature's throat, a sound of primal aggression directed not at Rhys, but at the bewildered, terrified pack members. A wave of fear rippled through the clearing. The wolf that was Lyra, its mind shrouded in a terrifying new darkness, lunged towards the nearest pack member, its fangs bared, its eyes alight with a dangerous hunger. "Lyra! No!" Rhys roared, his own instincts kicking in, transforming instantly into his powerful, tawny wolf form. He was faster now, unburdened by the curse's weight, his movements fluid and strong. He intercepted her, slamming into her side, diverting her attack. The impact sent a jolt through him. Her strength was immense, far beyond what he expected, far beyond what Lyra should possess. The obsidian wolf whirled, its crimson eyes narrowing, its snarl filled with a chilling malice. It recognized him, not as Rhys, not as its mate, but as an obstacle, a threat to its burgeoning primal urges. They clashed, two titans of the forest, their forms blurring in a whirlwind of fur and fangs, their growls echoing through the startled clearing. But this was no sparring match. Lyra's movements were feral, unrestrained, devoid of the control and technique he knew she possessed in human form. This was the curse, fighting through her, trying to assert dominance. Rhys fought defensively, his heart aching with every blow. He could not bring himself to harm her, even in this monstrous guise. He dodged, parried, and deflected, trying to incapacitate her, without inflicting serious injury. He saw glimpses of her in the ferocity, a flicker of the determination he knew so well, but it was twisted, corrupted by the crimson glow. This was a nightmare, a perversion of their shared destiny. He had prepared to save her, to cherish her, to become her mate. Now, he was fighting the very essence of his chosen Luna, fighting the monster she had become. The realization was a devastating blow, hitting him harder than any physical strike. Elder Phelan, his face pale with dread, shouted instructions, his voice strained. "Rhys! You must contain her. We do not know what she has become. She is not herself." But Lyra, or rather the curse now fully inhabiting her, seemed to understand. With a powerful roar, She broke free from his hold, leaping over the bewildered pack members, disappearing into the dense, ancient forest, leaving behind a profound silence and a lingering chill. The raw power of her departure was a terrifying testament to her transformed state. Rhys stood panting in the clearing, his fur bristling, his eyes filled with a desperate anguish. The curse was gone from him, a miraculous liberation, but it had found a new, horrifying host. He had sworn to protect his pack from this evil, and now that evil wore Lyra's face, possessed her body, and vanished into the wilds, a dangerous, unpredictable force. The irony was a cruel, relentless torment. His savior had become his greatest threat, and the woman he was destined to love was now the monster he was sworn to destroy. The weight of this new, terrifying destiny settled upon his shoulders, heavier than any curse he had ever borne. The forest, once Lyra's sanctuary, now felt like a dark, suffocating cage. The shift had been brutal, a searing agony that ripped through every cell of her being, followed by a profound, disorienting blankness. When awareness flickered back, it was not the familiar warmth of her human self, but a primal scream, an instinctual, overwhelming surge of aggression and untamed wildness. She was in a new body, a powerful, feral form, driven by urges she didn't recognize, desires that clawed at her from deep within. The world was a blur of heightened senses, every scent amplified, every rustle of leaves a symphony, every distant heartbeat a drum. And through it all, a constant, low thrum of malevolence, a voice that was not her own, whispering dark impulses, urging her towards violence, towards dominance. The crimson eyes that now stared out at the world were not hers. They were the curse's, and they saw everything through a terrifying filter of predatory hunger. She ran, driven by an instinct she couldn't comprehend, a desperate need to escape, to sever the ties to the place that had witnessed her horrifying transformation. The raw power in her limbs was exhilarating, a terrifying freedom that pulsed with a dark energy. She tore through the undergrowth, her powerful legs carrying her faster than any wolf she had ever known, her senses overwhelmed by the rush of wind, the scent of fresh earth, the faint, distant scent of the pack she had just fled. Part of her, the small, terrified Lyra, screamed in silent protest, recoiling from the primal urges that threatened to consume her. But the dominant force, the curse, reveled in this unbridled power, pushing her further, deeper into the untouched wilderness. Days blurred into a confusing haze of instinct and fragmented memories. She hunted, her senses guiding her to prey with unnerving precision, her powerful jaws tearing flesh with a ferocity that sickened the human part of her, even as the wolf form rejoiced in the kill. She drank from icy streams, the cold water a temporary balm against the burning within. Sleep offered no escape. Her dreams were a chaotic maelstrom of crimson flashes, distorted faces, and the omnipresent whispering voice of the curse, twisting her thoughts, feeding her dark desires. It was a constant battle, a silent war raging within her own mind, the gentle Lyra fighting for scraps of control against the overwhelming tide of the monstrous entity that now inhabited her. She would wake with a jolt, her heart hammering, uncertain where she was or what she had done. The crimson eyes were always there, reflecting a primal, untamed hunger. Sometimes, catching her reflection in a still pool of water, she would see them, blazing back at her, a terrifying mirror of the monster she had become. The realization would pierce through the haze of the curse, a shard of pure agony. This was not her. This was the very thing she was supposed to destroy. The irony was a cruel, relentless torment. She, the destined savior, was now the very embodiment of the ancient evil. The memories of Rhys, of the ritual, of her purpose, would surface, fleeting and distorted, glimpses of a life she was losing, a destiny irrevocably warped. The curse would immediately push these thoughts down, replacing them with a surge of aggression, a fierce need to hunt, to assert, to dominate. Meanwhile, back at Stone Haven, despair hung heavy in the air. Rhys was a man torn, his face etched with a profound agony that eclipsed even the years of battling the curse. The liberation from his own affliction was a hollow victory, tainted by the horrifying truth of Lyra's transformation. He felt her absence like a phantom limb, a constant, aching void in his soul, even as the monstrous manifestation of the curse consumed his every thought. His internal struggle was agonizing. His duty as Alpha was clear: protect his pack from threats, eliminate the curse that had plagued his lineage. But how could he eliminate the curse when it was Lyra? The woman he loved, the woman he was destined to mate, was now the very monster he had sworn to destroy. The weight of his oath pressed down on him, a crushing burden that threatened to break him. He gathered his inner circle in the Alpha's den, the stone walls of the ancient chamber seemingly absorbing the tension in the room. Gareth, his loyal beta, stood by his side, his face grim, his usually sharp eyes clouded with concern. Elder Phelan, looking older and more frail than Lyra had ever seen him, sat by the crackling fire, his hands clasped, his gaze fixed on the dancing flames, as if seeking answers in their chaotic dance. Other trusted pack members, Holden and Wren, sat around the table, their faces reflecting the communal grief and fear. "We have to find her," Rhys stated, his voice raw, hoarse with emotion, yet firm with the Alpha's authority. "We don't know what she's capable of in that form. She could be a danger to herself or to others." He avoided specifying what others, but the unspoken fear hung heavy in the air. Other packs, lone travelers, even innocent humans near their territory. "Alpha, with all due respect," Gareth began, his voice hesitant, choosing his words carefully. Elder Phelan said it himself. "This isn't just Lyra. This is the Crimson Curse, fully manifested. Its power, it was overwhelming. We saw what it did to her." His gaze flickered to Phelan, seeking corroboration. Phelan nodded slowly, his gaze still distant. "The ancient texts speak of a full transfer as an impossibility, a theoretical outcome never before witnessed. It suggests that her unique lunar energy, her very essence, may have acted as a perfect conduit, a lightning rod for the curse. It didn't break, it merely shifted its host. And because she is a priestess lineage, her power amplified it. She now holds the full, unadulterated power of the curse, and it has twisted her wolf beyond recognition." He sighed, a profound weariness in his voice. "Her minded, it will be fighting for control. But the curse is a strong, malevolent entity. It will seek to dominate, to consume her true self." Holden, a seasoned warrior, cleared his throat. "Alpha, what is our objective? Is it still to break the curse, or to eliminate the threat?" His voice was low, filled with a grim understanding of the terrible choice Rhys faced. Rhys slammed his fist on the ancient table, the sound echoing through the room. "She is Lyra. She is my destined Luna. I refuse to believe she is lost to us." His voice cracked with emotion, the Alpha's authority giving way to the raw anguish of a man in torment. "We will find a way. There must be a way to separate them, to save her from this monstrosity." He looked desperately at Phelan, seeking a flicker of hope, a hidden passage in the ancient lore. Phelan looked at him with profound pity. "Alpha, The texts offer no such path. The curse, once fully embodied, has always been irreversible. This is uncharted territory. We are dealing with an unprecedented manifestation. Then we will chart it, Rhys declared, his jaw set with fierce determination, his gaze hardening. We will send out search parties, discreetly. No one outside this circle is to know the full truth of what has happened. The pack needs hope, not despair. They need to believe Lyra will return to us whole. We will find her, we will contain her, and we will find a way to break this curse, even if it has found a new host. My life's purpose was to break this curse, and it will remain so, even now. He refused to give up, clinging to the smallest thread of hope, even as his heart screamed in protest at the enormity of the task. He would not destroy Lyra. He could not. Over the next few weeks, the Stone Haven pack initiated a desperate, covert search. Small, highly skilled teams, led by Gareth and Rhys himself, scoured the vast wilderness surrounding their territory. They moved with utmost discretion, leaving no trace, careful not to alarm neighboring packs or human settlements. Rhys, now unburdened by the curse's debilitating effects, was a force of nature in his wolf form, his senses sharper, his endurance boundless. He picked up Lyra's scent easily, a confusing mixture of her familiar, beloved essence and a sharp metallic tang, a scent of something primal and dangerous that made his fur bristle. He followed it relentlessly, driven by a desperate need to find her, to understand, to somehow reverse the catastrophe that had befallen them. Lyra, meanwhile, was drifting further and further from her former self. The periods of human consciousness became rarer, more fleeting, agonizingly brief flashes of clarity amidst the overwhelming haze of the curse's influence. In these moments, she would catch glimpses of the destruction she had wrought, the prey she had mercilessly torn apart, the primal, territorial urges that now drove her. The horror would wash over her, a wave of self-loathing so profound it threatened to shatter the last vestiges of her mind. She would remember Rhys's terrified eyes, Elder Phelan's horrified gasp, the looks of pure terror on the faces of her pack. The memory was a fresh stab of agony each time, a testament to her transformation. Monster. The word echoed in her mind, not a whisper from the curse, but a scream from her own dying humanity. She was the monster. She was the very thing Rhys was sworn to destroy. But thought brought with it a perverse sense of inevitability, a dark acceptance. She was tainted, corrupted, no longer the savior. The curse's whispers grew louder, more insistent. Power, dominance, survival. It urged her to embrace the wildness, to shed the last vestiges of her human compassion, to revel in the strength that pulsed through her obsidian form. It twisted her memories, turning Rhys into a pursuer, a threat, a hunter. It painted the pack as weak, irrelevant, something to be dominated or destroyed. She fought it, a desperate internal struggle, clinging to the fragments of her former self, the tender memories, the gentle instincts. But the curse was a relentless tide, slowly but surely eroding her resolve, overwhelming her very being. One cold, moonless night, Rhys's patrol stumbled upon a small, isolated hunting cabin at the edge of Stone Haven territory, deep within the Forbidden Lands. The scent of fresh blood, strong and metallic, hung heavy in the air. Rhys, in his wolf form, approached cautiously, his senses on high alert. What he found sent a chill of pure dread through him. The cabin was ransacked, its door ripped from its hinges, claw marks scarring the wooden frame. Inside, the scene was one of brutal carnage. A lone hunter, a human known to the pack as a quiet, respectful man, lay lifeless, his throat torn out, his body mangled. But it was the nature of the kill that confirmed Rhys's deepest fear. The ferocity, the sheer, unrestrained violence, screamed curse. And the lingering scent in the air, though tainted with blood, was undeniably Lyra's. Rhys let out a mournful howl, a sound of profound anguish that tore through the silent forest, alerting Gareth and the others. This wasn't just a threat anymore. This was a direct violation, a brutal act that proved the curse was gaining full control. Lyra was no longer just wandering. She was actively preying, shedding her humanity, becoming the very thing Rhys swore to destroy. The devastating proof was laid bare before him. Gareth transformed, his face grim, his eyes wide with a painful understanding. "Alpha," he whispered, his voice barely audible over Rhys's grief-stricken panting. We have to do something. This cannot continue." Rhys transformed back, his body trembling, not from cold, but from the raw agony in his soul. He knelt beside the mangled body, his hand shaking as he touched the cold skin. "No," he choked out, his voice thick with tears he refused to shed. "It's not her, it's the curse. We have to contain it. Before it takes her completely." He looked up at Gareth, his stormy eyes pleading, desperate for a solution that didn't involve destroying the woman he loved. "She's fighting, Gareth. I know she is. I can feel it." He knew, deep in his heart, that this was the curse's doing, a malevolent entity using Lyra's form as a weapon, twisting her instincts. He refused to believe Lyra herself was capable of such cold-blooded violence. He clung to that belief with a desperate tenacity. "But Alpha?" Gareth tried, his voice filled with painful practicality. If she reaches human towns or other packs, we will have no choice. The Alliance will demand action. This is the Crimson Curse, as powerful as it was in the legends, now embodied. We cannot ignore it." He spoke of the wider implications, the political fallout, the danger to their pack's standing if this secret got out. Rhys closed his eyes, picturing Lyra's soft smile, the gentle touch of her hands, the compassion in her eyes. The image warred with the horrific scene before him, the brutal reality of the monster she had become. A wave of profound despair washed over him, threatening to drown him in its icy depths. He had spent his entire life preparing to break the curse, to save his lineage. Now, the curse was broken, but it had exacted the most agonizing price imaginable. His savior had become the monster. His love had become his enemy. And he, the Alpha, was now faced with an unbearable choice: fulfill his oath and destroy the curse, or sacrifice everything to save the woman who was now its vessel. The weight of this decision pressed down on him, a crushing burden that threatened to break his very spirit. The next time they found her, it was near the border of a neighboring pack's territory, the Sunstone Pack, known for their aggressive patrols and intolerance for trespassers. Lyra, still in her monstrous obsidian wolf form, was attacking a lone male deer, her movements swift and brutal, driven by an insatiable hunger. Her crimson eyes glowed with an unnerving intensity, reflecting the moonlight. Rhys watched from a distance, hidden in the dense foliage, his heart clenching with a mixture of terror and overwhelming grief. This was not the Lyra he knew. This was the manifestation of the ancient evil, wielding her body as its weapon. He saw the subtle changes, the way her fur bristled with an unnatural energy, the chilling intelligence in her crimson eyes that belied the feral savagery of her actions. It was more than just instinct. There was a cold calculation in her movements, a predatory cunning that sent shivers down his spine. The curse was growing stronger, learning to wield her power, adapting to her essence. The thought terrified him more than anything. "We have to approach carefully, Alpha," Gareth whispered beside him, his wolf form low and wary. "She's different, stronger than any wolf I've seen." Rhys nodded, his jaw set. "She's aware. The curse is aware. It's using her power, her senses." He felt a cold dread settle in his stomach. This was beyond anything Elder Phelan had described, beyond anything in the ancient texts. This was a sentient malice, learning to wield Lyra's immense power. As they watched, a patrol from the Sunstone Pack emerged from the forest, drawn by the commotion. 2 large, powerful wolves, their coats the color of sunrise, their growls low and menacing, their eyes instantly fixing on the obsidian wolf. They saw not a cursed Luna, but an invading predator, a monstrous trespasser on their lands. Lyra's head snapped up, her attention shifting from her prey to the new arrivals. A low, menacing growl rumbled deep in her chest, a sound that radiated pure threat. Her crimson eyes narrowed, not with fear, but with a terrifying challenge. She took a step towards them, her powerful form radiating dominance, a silent dare. The Sunstone wolves, sensing the raw power emanating from her, hesitated, their bristling fur speaking of caution rather than immediate aggression. They were well-trained, disciplined, but faced with this unprecedented, terrifying manifestation, their instincts screamed danger. Rhys knew he had to act. If Lyra engaged the Sunstone Pack, it would ignite a war, expose the curse to the wider shifter world, and seal her fate. They would see her as an uncontainable threat, a monstrous anomaly that had to be eliminated. He couldn't let that happen. He couldn't let them hurt Lyra, even in this state. "Gareth, flank left," Rhys commanded, his voice low, urgent. "We lure her back to our territory. Do not engage unless absolutely necessary. We cannot risk her fighting 2 packs at once." He transformed, his tawny fur blending with the shadows, his eyes burning with a grim resolve. They moved in unison, a silent, coordinated ballet of shadows. Rhys emerged from the trees, placing himself between Lyra and the approaching Sunstone wolves, his stance a clear challenge. He let out a deep, resonant howl, a sound of alpha authority, a warning. Lyra's crimson eyes snapped to him, and for a fleeting moment, a flicker of something almost recognizable, a flicker of confusion or recognition, passed through their malevolent depths. But then it was gone, replaced by a surge of pure, unadulterated rage. She sought him not as her mate, but as an obstacle, a rival, a challenge to her newfound dominance. The curse hissed in her mind, urging her to destroy him, to eliminate the one who stood in her way. She lunged, not at the Sunstone wolves, but directly at Rhys, her movements a blur of obsidian fur and razor claws. Her attack was unhesitating, a terrifying display of raw power. Rhys met her, bracing for impact, his own instincts screaming at him to protect himself, even from her. Their clash was a symphony of snarls and the sickening thud of bodies colliding, the forest floor tearing beneath their paws. The Sunstone wolves watched, momentarily stunned by the ferocity of the encounter. They didn't understand what they were witnessing, only that a monstrous, dark wolf was fighting their alpha, a spectacle of terrifying power. Rhys, still refusing to inflict true harm on her, fought defensively, absorbing her blows, trying to pin her without breaking her bones. Her strength was overwhelming, fueled by a dark, relentless energy. He felt her fangs graze his shoulder, A shallow cut, but the venomous essence of the curse seemed to burn through his fur, searing his skin. He saw a flash of his own crimson eyes in her reflection. A terrifying mirror. He remembered the burden, the torment, and now she bore it fully. He finally managed to pin her, her obsidian form thrashing beneath him, her growls a guttural roar of frustration and rage. Her crimson eyes blazed inches from his, filled with a primal hatred that chilled him to the core. This was not Lyra. This was the curse. Lyra, he whispered, his voice a low plea, a desperate attempt to reach the woman buried beneath the monster. Fight it. Fight it. Please. For a fleeting second, the rage in her eyes seemed to flicker. A momentary hesitation, a subtle tremor running through her pinned body. A low whimper, almost human, escaped her throat, a sound of profound internal agony. He saw it, a tiny crack in the curse's dominance, a desperate plea for recognition from the Lyra trapped within. But then, with a surge of terrifying power, she bucked, throwing him off with unexpected force. She landed cleanly, snarling, her crimson eyes blazing with renewed malevolence. The curse had reasserted its dominance. She took one last look at the stunned sunstone wolves, a look of chilling contempt, then turned and plunged back into the depths of the Stone Haven forest, disappearing as swiftly as she had appeared, leaving behind a silence fraught with tension and a trail of her own blood. Rhys, shaken but largely uninjured, stood panting. He looked at the retreating obsidian form, then at the still-stunned sunstone wolves. He howled, a deep, commanding sound that echoed through the trees, asserting his dominance, claiming the territory and the incident as his own. The sunstone wolves, still confused and wary, exchanged glances, then wisely retreated, their curiosity outweighed by the obvious danger and the clear challenge from Rhys. They had seen enough. Gareth transformed, rushing to Rhys's side, his concern etched on his face. "Alpha, are you injured?" Rhys shook his head, running a hand through his fur, his gaze fixed on the spot where Lyra had disappeared. "She's stronger than I thought. The curse, it's evolving, it's learning." His voice was grim, filled with a chilling realization. "We can't fight it like this. We need to find a way to trap her, to contain her, before she causes any more damage." His heart ached, a profound heavy weight in his chest. He was talking about trapping the woman he loved, treating her like a dangerous beast. But what choice did he have? The beast was undeniable. The monster was real, and it wore Lyra's face. The discovery of Lyra's growing sentience, the chilling cunning that now laced her actions, sent a fresh wave of dread through Rhys. This was not merely an uncontrollable beast. It was a manifestation of the curse that was learning to use Lyra's innate intelligence, twisting her profound connection to the lunar energies into a dark mirror of her former perker. Self. The urgency to contain her intensified, propelled by the very real threat she posed not only to the outside world, but to the delicate balance of their own pack's existence. Rhys convened with Elder Phelan and Gareth in the Alpha's den, the scent of burning herbs filling the air, a futile attempt to cleanse the heavy atmosphere of despair. "She's not just feral," Rhys explained, pacing restlessly, his tawny wolf fur bristling with agitation. "She's aware. The way she broke free, the way she assessed the Sunstone Patrol, the look in those crimson eyes. It's using her." His voice was a low growl of frustration and profound fear. "We need a plan, not just to find her, but to contain her without harming her, to hold her until we can understand what is truly happening." Elder Phelan's gaze was distant, thoughtful. "The moonlit jail," he murmured, his voice hoarse, almost a whisper from the depths of memory. A sacred holding chamber. It draws its power from the full moon, traditionally used to contain rogue wolves whose rage consumed them before the curse intensified. It channels the lunar energy, but instead of amplifying, it calms, it dampens. It's an ancient magic, long unused, almost forgotten. Gareth frowned. But, Elder, the jail is deep within the Forbidden Lands, past the Whispering Gorge, and it only fully activates under a specific lunar alignment. We have to lure her there, and it's a treacherous journey. The Forbidden Lands were aptly named, a desolate stretch of ancient, gnarled trees and treacherous ravines, where the very earth seemed to hold dark secrets. It is our only chance, Rhys stated, his eyes fixed on Phelan. Does it truly dampen the curse? Could it suppress its influence, even in a priestess of Lyra's power? He clung to the thread of hope, desperate for any alternative to outright confrontation and potential destruction. Phelan nodded slowly. The jail was built with priestess magic, the antithesis to the curse's nature. It channels the moon's energy in a way that should, theoretically, counteract it. But we cannot predict the full effect on this unprecedented Amal. Manifestation. He offered no guarantees, only a sliver of possibility. The plan was set. A dangerous, desperate gamble. They would track Lyra, herd her towards the moonlit jail, and attempt to trap her within its ancient walls. It was a perilous undertaking, risking not only their lives but Lyra's complete loss to the curse if they failed. Rhys organized his most trusted warriors, Gareth, Holden, and 2 other seasoned hunters, Ren and Finn. They would move as a single coordinated unit, using their heightened senses to track her, their knowledge of the terrain to guide her without direct confrontation. For days they shadowed her, a grim, silent pursuit through the dense forest. Lyra's movements were erratic, driven by the unpredictable impulses of the curse, sometimes driven by hunger, sometimes by an inexplicable urge to dominate, to challenge. They witnessed her take down a large elk with terrifying efficiency, her obsidian form a blur of dark power. They saw her mark territory with a chilling precision, her scent now carrying an unfamiliar, metallic tang of dominance that warned other predators away. They even saw her briefly hesitate at the edge of a human logging camp, her crimson eyes flickering with what almost seemed like a moment of internal conflict, before the curse violently steered her away, deeper into Purr. The uninhabited wilds. This fleeting hesitation, this brief struggle, was the only evidence Rhys had that Lyra was still fighting within. He clung to it like a drowning man to a spa. The moonlit jail was a circular enclosure, its walls crafted from massive, dark stones, ancient and overgrown with moss, standing sentinel in a deep, hidden valley that only the pack's most experienced hunters knew. In its center, a glowing, crystalline altar hummed with a faint, silver light, pulsating with lunar energy. It was a place of profound power, both ancient and ominous. The approach was treacherous, a narrow path winding down a steep, rocky incline, making a direct assault, or even a close pursuit, impossible once she entered the gorge. They would have to guide her in. The night they chose for the entrapment was a full moon, its silver orb hanging heavy and luminous in the clear sky, bathing the forest in an ethereal glow. This was the night of peak lunar power, when the jail would be most potent, but also when the curse within Lyra would be at its strongest, her transformations complete, her primal instincts overwhelming. The stakes were impossibly high. Rhys and his team positioned themselves strategically, creating a funnel, subtly pushing Lyra towards the mouth of the gorge that led to the jail. She sensed their presence, a low growl rumbling in her chest, her crimson eyes flashing, but the overwhelming power of the full moon seemed to amplify her predatory focus, her awareness of territory, making her predictable. She seemed to consider them a rival pack, challenging her newfound dominance rather than a rescue mission. She moved with a chilling precision, drawn by the invisible pull of the lunar energy emanating from the jail, unknowingly walking into the trap. As she entered the narrow mouth of the gorge, her obsidian form silhouetted against the bright moonlight, Rhys gave the signal. Gareth and the others emerged from their hiding places, not attacking, but forming a tight perimeter, using their wolf forms to subtly block her escape routes. They herded her deeper into the ravine, towards the glowing light of the jail. Lyra reacted with a surge of fury. She realized she was being cornered, her crimson eyes blazing with unbridled rage. She lunged, a terrifying blur of black fur, directly at Rhys, her most immediate threat. Their forms clashed in the narrow confines of the gorge, a chaotic dance of fangs and claws. Rhys fought with a desperate strength, remembering her earlier struggles, refusing to be outmatched. He knew he had to keep her focused on him, distracting her from the true nature of their movements, while the others closed the trap. Finally, with a powerful lunge, Rhys managed to push her into the entrance of the moonlit jail. He quickly disengaged, leaving her inside. Gareth and the others swiftly moved to block the entrance, using large reinforced nets spun from ancient moonblessed vines, and then shifting quickly to human form to secure the heavy carved stone door that slid into place, sealing the opening with a resounding thud. Lyra, trapped within the circular enclosure, roared, a sound of pure, unadulterated fury and frustration. She crashed against the thick stone walls, her powerful body reverberating with the impact, shaking the very ground beneath their feet. Her crimson eyes, blazing like twin embers, darted around the confined space, searching for an escape. Rhys transformed back to human, his body aching, his fur bristling, the phantom pain of her fangs still stinging his shoulder. He watched through a narrow opening in the stone, his heart aching with every desperate lunge she made. Her roars echoed, filled with a raw, terrifying power. As the moonlight streamed through the open roof of the circular jail, bathing the crystalline altar in its full silver glow, the altar began to hum louder, its light intensifying, casting an ethereal luminescence over Baal. Lyra's obsidian form. The glowing light pulsed, growing brighter, stronger, enveloping her. Lyra roared again, but this time her roar was different. It was laced with a strange new quality, a howl of profound confusion, then, impossibly, a sound of agony. Her powerful body convulsed, not with rage, but with a different kind of struggle. The crimson glow in her eyes began to flicker, momentarily dimming, then blazing brighter, then dimming again. It was a silent, internal war, being waged on a spiritual battlefield. The curse was fighting back against the dampening effect of the jail, but for the first time since her transformation, it was losing. Rhys saw it, a flicker of hope in the midst of his despair. He saw the crimson glow recede, replaced, for a fleeting moment, by the warm, intelligent brown he knew so well, before the crimson reasserted itself. It was a painful, torturous cycle. "It's working," Phelan whispered, his eyes wide with a mix of awe and trepidation. "The jail is drawing out the curse. It's fighting for control." Inside the jail, Lyra's obsidian wolf form began to tremble violently. The roar transformed into a choked whimper, a sound of profound distress. She thrashed, tearing at her own fur with her claws, as if trying to tear away the very skin that held the curse. She slumped to the ground, her massive body heaving, the brilliant crimson glow in her eyes dimming, fading, then flickering back, a silent, agonizing battle. It was a painful transformation to witness, seeing the woman he loved trapped in such torment. As dawn approached, painting the sky in soft hues of pink and gold, the moonlight faded from the jail. The crystalline altar dimmed, its hum subsiding, its magic weakening with the departure of the moon's direct influence. Lyra lay sprawled on the cold stone floor, no longer thrashing, no longer howling, her obsidian fur matted, her powerful form utterly still. The crimson glow in her eyes had completely faded, replaced by the deep, intelligent brown Lyra's eyes. Her wolf form was still massive, still imposing, but the malevolent aura had vanished, replaced by a profound weariness, a deep, exhausted slumber. She was still in her wolf form, but the curse, for now, had been suppressed. Rhys ordered the jail sealed, leaving a small opening for air, but making sure it was completely secure. He knew this was only a temporary solution. The curse was not gone, merely dormant. It lay coiled within her, waiting for the full moon's return, waiting for an opportunity to reassert its dominance. But for now, Lyra was safe, contained, and Rhys, looking at the exhausted, humanoid wolf, felt a surge of desperate love, mingled with an overwhelming sense of responsibility. He would protect her. He would find a way to save her, even if it meant defying every ancient law, every pack tradition, every instinct to destroy the monster she harbored. He would sacrifice everything to bring his Luna back to him, whole and free. The true battle had just begun. Days bled into weeks within the hushed solemnity of Stone Haven, each sunrise a quiet plea for hope, each sunset a grim reminder of the enduring challenge. Lyra remained trapped within the moonlit jail, her obsidian wolf form a silent sentinel against the crystalline altar. During the day, in the absence of direct moonlight, her eyes held their familiar brown hue, clouded with an almost unbearable weariness and a profound, silent shame. She would sometimes whimper, a mournful sound that tore at Rhys's heart, pressing herself against the cold stone walls, as if seeking an escape from her own body. He would sit outside the jail for hours, his wolf form pressed against the outer wall, feeling the faint vibrations of her breathing, the thrum of her immense, powerful heart, trying to offer what little comfort he could across the impenetrable barrier. He spoke to her, soft words of reassurance, recounting memories of their past, of the dreams they once shared, clinging to the hope that some part of her, the true Lyra, could hear him, could feel his presence. But as dusk approached, a subtle tension would fill the air around the jail. With the moon's ascent, a faint, malevolent glow would begin to pulse from within her eyes, a slow, terrifying resurgence of the curse. By the time the moon hung high in the night sky, those eyes would blaze with the familiar crimson, and a low guttural growl would rumble in her throat, signaling the curse's reawakening. She would begin to pace, her powerful form radiating a restless, destructive energy, slamming against the ancient walls, testing their formidable strength, the wildness returning to her movements. The moonlit jail would hum with renewed power, its silver light intensifying, containing her, dampening the curse's immediate control, but not erasing it. It was a torment for both of them, a daily cycle of Lyra fighting for control, and the curse asserting its terrifying dominance. Rhys spent every waking moment with Elder Phelan, poring over ancient texts, searching for any obscure reference, any forgotten ritual, anything that offered a glimmer of a permanent solution. The old scrolls, written in a language almost lost to time, spoke of legends, of the curse's origins in a forbidden pact, of moon spirits and dark magic, but nowhere was there a mention of a transferred curse, let alone a method for its reversal. The silence of the texts on this specific manifestation was deafening, a crushing weight of hopelessness. "The jail contains it, Alpha, but it does not remove it," Phelan explained one evening, his voice heavy with resignation. "The curse is entwined with her very being now. Her priestess magic, the purest lunar conduit, has absorbed it, amplified it. It lives within her. To remove it would be to extinguish her." His words were a direct blow, a stark declaration of an impossible choice. "No," Rhys growled, his hands clenched into fists, his knuckles white. "There has to be another way. She is Lyra. She is my Lyra. I will not give up on her." He refused to accept such a fate, refused to condemn her. His desperation fueled a reckless idea. "What if," Rhys began, his voice barely a whisper, "what if I take it back?" Phelan stared at him, his ancient eyes wide with shock. "Alpha, that is madness. The curse would consume you entirely, immediately. Your body has fought it for years, weakening it within you. Hers has amplified it. You would become nothing but a mindless beast, forever." "But if it returns to me," Rhys argued, his eyes burning with a wild hope, "she would be free. And I have faced it before. I can fight it again. Perhaps, weakened by the transfer, it would be less potent once returned." He was grasping at straws, desperate to save her, even if it meant sacrificing himself. Phelan shook his head slowly. "The curse is now stronger, Alpha. It adapted to Lyra's power. It would be far more formidable now. The jail cannot transfer. It can only contain. And any attempt to draw it out of her directly would either fail catastrophically or fuse it further, extinguishing both of you." His words were a cold shower of realism, dousing Rhys's desperate hope. Meanwhile, Gareth was observing the growing unease within the pack. Whispers began to circulate, hushed and fearful. Pack members, especially the younger ones, had seen Lyra's transformation, had witnessed her monstrous power, even if they didn't understand the full truth of the curse. They saw her as a threat, a terrifying anomaly, the daily sight of the sealed jail, with the occasional desperate roar or thud emanating from within, fueled their apprehension. The very air of the pack lands, once filled with the warmth of community, now carried a subtle chill of fear. "Alpha, the pack is growing restless," Gareth reported one evening, his voice carefully neutral, yet conveying the gravity of the situation. "They don't understand why Lyra is contained. Some are questioning, others are frightened. They fear what she has become. They remember the legends of the curse, the havoc it wrought in the past." Rhys ran a hand through his hair, his brow furrowed with worry. "We cannot tell them the full truth, not yet. It would cause panic, and they might demand irreversible actions." He couldn't bear the thought of them demanding her destruction. "We tell them that Lyra is undergoing a prolonged, difficult ritual to fully purge the curse, and that the jail amplifies her healing. A half-truth, but one that offers hope." This half-truth bought them time, but the underlying tension remained. A persistent hum beneath the surface of pack life. Rhys found himself increasingly isolated, consumed by his burden, by the impossible dilemma that consumed his every thought. His sleep was plagued by nightmares of Lyra's crimson eyes, of her feral snarls, of the unbearable choice that loomed over him. He felt the weight of his alpha duties, the responsibility to protect his pack, warring with the profound love and loyalty he felt for Lyra. One moonlit night, Lyra, in her wolf form, sensed Rhys outside the jail. This time, as the curse surged through her, amplifying her instincts, she did something different. Instead of raging, she focused. She remembered the fleeting moments of connection, the gentle whispers of his voice, the warmth of his presence just outside the stone. The curse, powerful as it was still fundamentally within her, bound to her essence. And a part of Lyra, a deep, resilient part, pushed back. She didn't try to attack the wolves. Instead, she concentrated her energy, not on breaking free, but on projecting. She focused her senses, her awareness, towards the opening where Rhys often stood. And for the first time since her transformation, she pushed a thought, a fragmented image, towards him. It was a fleeting, agonizing flash. Her own human face, contorted in silent agony, superimposed with the blazing crimson eyes, a desperate plea for help. Rhys, sitting patiently outside, felt it. A raw, piercing thought, a burst of emotion that wasn't his own, yet resonated deep within his soul. He recoiled slightly, startled. It was Lyra. She was communicating. She was fighting. The image of her suffering human face, twisted by the curse, was agonizingly clear, a desperate cry from the depths of her imprisonment. "Lyra," he whispered, scrambling closer to the opening, his heart hammering with a desperate hope. "Can you hear me? Are you there?" A low whimper answered him from inside the jail, a sound that held both agony and a faint, fragile thread of recognition. The crimson eyes inside flickered, a desperate battle raging for control. Another fragmented image pulsed into his mind, clearer this time, a memory of their last uncursed moment, of her hand in his, of a whispered promise under the moon. And then, a word, not spoken aloud, but forcefully projected into his mind, raw with desperation and terrifying clarity. "Destroy." Rhys froze. Destroy? Was it Lyra, begging him to end her torment, to fulfill his original oath? Or was it the curse, cleverly manipulating her fragmented consciousness, testing him, twisting his loyalties? The ambiguity was a cruel torment. The thought hung heavy in the air, a chilling command that contradicted his deepest desires. He closed his eyes, his mind reeling, torn between hope and a profound, agonizing despair. Lyra was still there, but the monster was too, and the line between them was becoming terrifyingly thin. The next morning, Rhys returned to the jail, his face grim, his decision made. He couldn't just contain her. He had to understand. He had to try something else. He consulted with Elder Phelan, recounting the projected thought, the word destroy. Phelan listened, his face solemn. It is either Lyra, in her lucid agony, begging for release, or the curse, playing a cruel game, trying to push you to its own self-destruction. The curse is a creature of immense malevolence, Alpha. It will exploit any weakness, any shred of love or compassion. Then I must find out, Rhys declared, his voice resolute. I will enter the jail, Gareth gasped, stepping forward. Alpha, that is suicide. The curse is too powerful. It will consume you. We saw its strength. She is in there, Rhys stated, his eyes burning with an unshakable conviction. And she is fighting. I felt it. If there is any chance, any hope of reaching her, it is through connection, not through force. The jail dampens the curse, does it not? It creates a buffer. It will give me a chance. I will not stand by while she suffers alone. He looked at Phelan. Prepare the protective charms, Elder, the strongest you have. I will go in at sundown, before the full moon fully rises, when the curse is still waking. Phelan, seeing the absolute determination in Rhys's eyes, knew argument was futile. He nodded, his ancient hands already moving to gather the rarest herbs, the most potent talismans. He would prepare Rhys for the perilous journey, knowing it might be a journey of no return. As dusk settled, painting the sky in fiery hues, Rhys stood before the moonlit jail. He was stripped bare, save for a loincloth, his body covered in intricate protective runes drawn in crushed herbs and blessed ash by Phelan's trembling hands. His heart hammered in his chest, not with fear, but with a profound sense of purpose. This was not just about saving Lyra. It was about saving a part of himself, a part of their shared destiny. He would either bring her back, or he would fall trying. Gareth and the other warriors stood guard, their faces grim, their wolves restless beneath their skin. Phelan performed a final blessing, his voice a low, ancient chant, praying for Rhys's safety, for Lyra's soul. Rhys looked at Gareth, a silent understanding passing between them. "If I did not return by dawn, Gareth, you are the Alpha. Protect the pack, no matter what." His voice was firm, resolute. Then, with a deep breath, he signaled for the ancient stone door to be unsealed. The massive slab groaned, slowly grinding open, revealing the dim interior of the jail, the powerful, slumbering form of the obsidian wolf lying within. The air inside was thick, heavy with the scent of raw wolf, and something else, something metallic and dark, the lingering essence of the curse. He stepped inside, the door slowly creaking shut behind him, sealing him in with the monster that was Lyra. The obsidian wolf stirred, its massive head lifting slowly, its human brown eyes blinking, unfocused, burdened by sleep and residual torment. Then, as it recognized him, as the full implications of his presence dawned, those eyes began to shift. A faint, malevolent crimson began to bleed into their depths, slowly, inexorably, painting them with the curse's terrifying hue. A low growl rumbled in its chest, a sound of awakening menace. Rhys stood his ground, meeting her gaze, his own eyes filled not with fear, but with a desperate love. "Lyra," he whispered, his voice resonating in the confined space, a plea against the rising tide of darkness. "It's me, Rhys." The crimson deepened, overwhelming the brown. The growl intensified, becoming a chilling snarl of raw, untamed fury. The obsidian wolf rose, slowly, deliberately, its massive form filling the space, radiating a terrifying power. It was no longer Lyra. It was the monster. It was the curse, awakened and ready to consume him, just as it had threatened to consume his lineage for generations. Rhys braced himself, ready to face the storm, ready to fight for the woman he loved, even if it meant confronting the very evil that wore her beloved face. The air crackled with a malevolent energy as the obsidian wolf, fully awake and consumed by the curse, lunged. Its movements were too fast to track, a blur of dark fur and razor-sharp claws. Rhys, despite the protective charms, felt the chilling impact as she slammed into him, knocking the wind from his lungs. He transformed instantly, his tawny wolf form meeting hers in a violent clash, a desperate dance of survival within the confines of the moonlit jail. This was no ordinary fight. This was a battle for a soul, a desperate struggle against a powerful entity that wore the face of the woman he loved. Her fangs snapped inches from his throat, her claws raked across his flank, each strike imbued with the curse's malevolent energy, burning like acid. He fought defensively, his heart aching with every parry, every dodge, refusing to inflict lasting harm on her. He saw the pure, unadulterated hatred in those crimson eyes, the rage that wasn't Lyra's, but the curse's, twisted and amplified by her priestess power. "Fight it, Lyra," he growled, his voice a desperate plea, trying to pierce through the veil of malevolence. "Remember me!" Remember who you are." But the curse seemed to relish his pain, her attacks growing more precise, more brutal. She was learning his fighting style, adapting to his defenses. The jail hummed, its lunar energy attempting to dampen her, but the curse was a formidable opponent, fighting for its freedom, for its full manifestation. He felt the insidious whispers in his own mind, faint echoes of the curse from his youth, now amplified by proximity to her. Destroy him. Take his power. Embrace the darkness. He pushed them back, focusing on Lyra, on the faint flicker of humanity he believed was still there. He managed to pin her, his massive paw pressing against her throat. But she thrashed with unnatural strength, her hind legs raking his chest, drawing deep, burning gashes. Her crimson eyes blazed, spitting pure fire, and he saw no recognition, no sign of the Lyra he knew. Despair began to creep in, a cold tendril threatening to wrap around his heart. Had he made a mistake? Was she truly lost? Then, as her fangs snapped dangerously close to his face, he saw it. A single tear, human and clear, escaped the corner of her crimson eye, tracing a path through her obsidian fur. It was fleeting, instantly absorbed by the dark coat, but he saw it. A single, desperate tear. Lyra was still in there. She was screaming. A surge of renewed determination, fiercely protective, coursed through him. He wouldn't fight the curse with brute force. He would fight it with what it couldn't comprehend. Love. He lowered his head, pressing his muzzle gently against her thrashing, snarling face, ignoring the danger, ignoring the snapping jaws. He poured all his love, all his memories, all his desperate hope into that single gesture. He let her scent, the familiar, comforting scent of Lyra beneath the foreign taint of the curse, wash over him. For a moment, the thrashing intensified, a desperate internal struggle. The crimson glow in her eyes pulsed violently, flickering, dimming, then blazing brighter, as if the curse was fighting a furious losing battle against an unexpected enemy. A deep, agonizing whimper tore from Lyra's throat, a sound of profound torment, a human sound of despair from within the beast. Then, slowly, miraculously, the crimson light began to recede, drawing back from the edges of her eyes, shrinking, until it was nothing more than a tiny, almost imperceptible spark deep within the familiar cod, warmth of her brown eyes. The obsidian fur began to shimmer, losing its impenetrable darkness, softening, lightening. Her massive wolf form, still powerful, began to shrink, to refine, returning to a more natural, balanced size, though still larger and more intensely muscled than any other female wolf in the pack. The malevolent aura dissipated, replaced by an overwhelming wave of exhaustion and profound sadness. The fight drained out of her. She slumped beneath him, no longer thrashing, her body trembling uncontrollably, her eyes now fully, undeniably brown, though filled with unshed tears and a deep, agonizing shame. She whimpered, a sound of profound grief and guilt, and then, impossibly, began to transform back to her human form. The transformation was slow, painful, her bones grinding, her skin rippling, but it was happening. The curse, though still within her, had retreated, pushed back by an unexpected force. Rhys released her, transforming back to human, his body aching, his wounds bleeding, but his eyes wide with a triumphant awe. He watched as the obsidian wolf shrank, fur receding, skin stretching, until Lyra lay before him, naked and vulnerable, curled into a fetal position on the cold stone, trembling violently, her skin pale, her body covered in a faint sheen of dark residual fur that quickly faded, her eyes, full of tears, lifted to meet his, Rhys, she whispered, her voice hoarse, broken, filled with an unbearable anguish. I killed. I hurt people. I'm a monster. Her eyes, now fully brown, welled with tears, reflecting the profound self-loathing that consumed her. She struggled to push herself up, her body weak, her head spinning with residual echoes of the curse. He knelt beside her, ignoring his own injuries, pulling her gently into his arms, wrapping his own body around her, shielding her. "No, Lyra," he murmured, pressing his face into her hair, inhaling her familiar, beloved scent, mingled with the faint, lingering scent of the curse. "You're not a monster. You are Lyra. You fought it. You came back to me. I saw it. I felt it." He held her tightly, as if to physically absorb her pain, her shame, willing her to believe him. "The curse tried to take you, but you fought it. You showed me. You are still in there." She clung to him, trembling, sobbing, the dam of repressed horror breaking within her. It whispers. It tells me to destroy. It feels so powerful, Rhys. I almost lost myself. I was so angry, so hungry I couldn't stop it." Her words were choked, raw with a terror that transcended the physical. I saw the hunter. I remember the deer. It was me, Rhys. It was me." The memory of the carnage, the blood, the primal satisfaction that had surged through her, was a fresh wound, twisting her features with self-disgust. "No," Rhys repeated, his voice firm, unwavering, refusing to let her succumb to the curse's insidious poison. "That was the curse. It used your body, yes, but it wasn't you. Not the true you. The true you is here, fighting, alive. You pushed it back. You always will." He stroked her hair, pressing a kiss to her forehead, a silent vow to never let her fall. He knew the fight wasn't over. The curse was still within her, lurking, waiting. But for the first time since her transformation, there was hope. A fragile, desperate hope, but hope nonetheless. They would face it together. They would find a way. Outside the jail, the first rays of dawn touched the ancient stone. Gareth and the others, who had heard the agonized howls and the desperate pleas, stood silent vigil, their faces etched with anxiety. When Rhys emerged, Lyra wrapped in his cloak, her face pale but her eyes unmistakably her own. A collective gasp, then a wave of profound relief, rippled through them. She was still in her human form, though her eyes were raw with tears, and her body trembled with exhaustion. "She's back," Rhys announced, his voice hoarse with emotion, his arm tightly around Lyra, offering unwavering support, protecting her vulnerability. "The jail works. It dampens the curse. She's Lyra." He looked at Phelan, his eyes filled with a new resolve. "But it is not gone. It lives within her. And we will find a way to live with it, to control it, and one day to truly banish it, together." Lyra looked at the faces of her pack, their fear slowly giving way to relief, but still tinged with uncertainty. She saw their unanswered questions, their lingering doubts. She was not fully healed. She carried the monster within her. But as Rhys tightened his arm around her, a silent promise in his eyes, she knew she wouldn't face it alone. Her destiny had been irrevocably altered, but perhaps a new path, an even stronger one, was beginning to unfold. The savior had become the monster, but the monster was learning to fight back, guided by love, sustained by hope, and protected by the Alpha who refused to abandon her. The weeks that followed Lyra's emergence from the moonlit jail were a fragile dance between hope and terror. The jail had suppressed the curse, allowing Lyra's true self to re-emerge, but it had not eradicated the malevolence coiled within her. She was now able to maintain her human form during the day, a profound relief for herself and the pack, yet the lingering shadow of her monstrous transformation clung to her like a second skin. Her eyes, though mostly brown, would occasionally flicker with a faint crimson hue when strong emotions, particularly anger or fear, surged through her. This subtle shift was a constant, stark reminder of the dormant beast within. The pack's reaction was complex. Relief was palpable, a collective sigh that Lyra was no longer the rampaging monster they had witnessed. Yet, an undercurrent of unease persisted. Whispers followed her, hushed and nervous, whenever she walked through the packlands. Children, once drawn to her gentle nature, now instinctively shied away, their eyes wide with fear. Lyra felt their apprehension like a physical weight, a constant reminder of the horrific acts she had committed while under the curse's sway. The memory of the hunter, the deer, the raw savagery of her actions, haunted her waking hours and plagued her nightmares. Shame coiled deep in her gut, a burning ember that threatened to consume her. She was Lyra, but she was also something else, something terrifying, and she carried the burden of that dual nature with every breath. Rhys, however, remained her unwavering anchor. He never flinched, never hesitated, his devotion a powerful beacon in her darkness. He spent every moment he could by her side, helping her to reconnect with her human instincts, to remember the gentle Lyra she once was. He held her when nightmares shook her awake, tracing soothing patterns on her skin, whispering words of reassurance. He trained with her, helping her to regain control over her wolf form, now smaller and less monstrous than its initial cursed manifestation, but still radiating a raw, untamed power. During their training shifts, her eyes would sometimes flash crimson, her movements becoming sharper, more aggressive, and Rhys would gently, patiently guide her back, reminding her of control, of purpose. He was constantly searching for a solution, poring over Elder Phelan's ancient texts, driven by an unshakable belief that Lyra could be fully restored. His determination was a shield against her despair, a constant affirmation of her worth, of her humanity. Elder Phelan continued his research, delving into the most obscure lore, searching for parallels, for any hidden wisdom that might offer a path to true purification. He spoke of the curse as a parasitic entity, a consciousness of its own, now deeply rooted within Lyra's pure, powerful essence. He theorized that while the jail dampened its direct influence, it could only be truly severed through a profound act of spiritual cleansing, a ritual that drew upon a source of power even greater than the moon. The Sunstone. Phelan mused one afternoon, his voice barely a whisper, his gaze distant. The legends speak of a powerful artifact, a relic of primordial light, the antithesis of all shadow. It is said to reside in the heart of the Sunstone Pack's territory, a sacred jewel that glows with the very essence of the sun itself. It embodies the pure, untainted light, capable of burning away even the deepest darkness. Rhys looked at him, hope flickering in his storm-colored eyes. The Sunstone Pack, the one whose border Lyra encountered, a grim reminder of her recent past. They would never let us near it. They are fiercely territorial, and after Lyra's incident, their distrust of us would be absolute. They might, Lyra interjected, her voice quiet but firm. She had been listening, a silent presence, her mind churning with possibilities. If they understood what I am, what this curse truly is, if they knew I wasn't a rogue, but a victim, fighting for my very soul, They are protectors of ancient ways, just like us. Perhaps, if they see the threat, the true danger of this curse, they might be willing to help. She felt a desperate urgency, a need to face the Sunstone Pack, to offer atonement, to explain the horror that had possessed her. It was a daunting prospect, but one she felt compelled to pursue. Rhys looked at her, then at Phelan. It is a massive risk. We would be walking into their territory with a cursed Luna after she trespassed and caused an incident. They might see it as an invasion, or worse, see her as a threat to be eliminated on sight. But it is a risk we must take, Lyra insisted, her eyes locking with Rhys's, a desperate plea in their depths. I cannot live like this, Rhys. Half cursed, half human, terrifying my own pack, haunted by what I've done. If this sunstone is the answer, if it can truly cleanse me, then I must try. For my sake, for your sake, for the pack's sake. Rhys saw the raw determination in her eyes, the desperate plea for a life free from the curse. He knew she was right. They had to try. He was willing to risk everything for her. Very well, he said, his voice firm, resolute. We approach them carefully. We seek an audience with their alpha. We present our case, and we pray they understand. The journey to the Sunstone Pack's territory was fraught with tension. Rhys led a small delegation. Himself, Lyra, Gareth, and Elder Phelan. Lyra remained in her human form, draped in a thick cloak, her face pale but her resolve unshakable. They approached the Sunstone border at dawn, sending a single, respectful howl as a sign of peaceful intent. A patrol of Sunstone warriors, their fur the color of bright sunrise, emerged from the forest, their stances wary, their eyes sharp and suspicious. Their beta, a powerful golden-furred wolf with a grim expression, stepped forward, his gaze hardening as it fell on Lyra. He clearly recognized her from the border quad. Incident. State your purpose, Alpha Rhys. The Sunstone beta growled, his voice laced with suspicion. Your presence here, with her, is audacious. Rhys stepped forward, his own alpha presence radiating calm authority, yet laced with humility. We come in peace, Beta. We seek an audience with your alpha, to explain a grave matter that affects not only our pack, but potentially all shifters. He gestured subtly to Lyra. It concerns the Crimson Curse. The Beta's eyes narrowed, a flicker of surprise and deeper suspicion in their depths. The Crimson Curse was ancient knowledge, confined to the oldest packs. He hesitated, clearly weighing the implications. Finally, with a curt nod, he led them towards the Sunstone Pack's central village. The Sunstone territory was vibrant, bathed in the warmth of perpetual sunlight, a stark contrast to the shadowed ancient woods of Stone Haven. Their homes were built into the sun-drenched cliffs, their central meeting hall an open-air amphitheater carved into solid rock, constantly bathed in natural light. The pack members were strong, proud, their faces bearing a healthy glow, their movements radiating confidence. They stared at Lyra with a mixture of intense curiosity and lingering fear, their gazes lingering on her eyes, subtly searching for the crimson flicker. Lyra met their stares with a quiet dignity, refusing to flinch, knowing she had to earn their trust, had to show them the human beneath the monster. They were led into the amphitheater, where Alpha Kale, the formidable leader of the Sunstone Pack, awaited them. He was a majestic figure, his human form radiating power and wisdom, his long, sun-gold hair streaked with silver, his eyes the color of molten gold. He sat on a carved stone throne, his expression unreadable, his gaze piercing as it fixed on Lyra. Alpha Rhys. Cale's voice boomed, deep and resonant. You risk much by bringing this aberration into my lands. Speak your purpose, quickly. His tone left no room for doubt about his displeasure. Rhys, standing firm, began to explain, his voice calm and clear, recounting the ancient prophecy, the ritual, the horrifying transfer of the Crimson Curse, and Lyra's subsequent torment. He omitted no detail, even the incident at the border, accepting full responsibility for Lyra's actions while under the curse's influence. He spoke of Lyra's suffering, her fight for control, and their desperate search for a permanent cure. When he finished, a tense silence hung in the amphitheater. Cale remained motionless, his golden eyes fixed on Lyra, a profound study of her features. Finally, Lyra stepped forward, her voice soft but clear, imbued with a quiet power. Alpha Cale, I know what I became. I remember the primal rage, the overwhelming hunger, the destructive power that possessed my body. I fought it every moment, a battle for my very soul. I am Lyra. I am the Priestess of Stone Haven, sworn to protect and heal. But I am also the vessel of the Crimson Curse. I carry its weight, its darkness. I beg you, not for mercy, but for understanding. If the Sunstone, your sacred relic, can truly cleanse me, can sever this evil from my being, then I am willing to undergo any trial, any ritual, to prove myself worthy. I will not rest until this darkness is purged, not only for my own peace, but for the safety of all shifters, for the balance of our world. I ask for your help, not as an alpha, but as one who suffers under a terrible ancient burden. As she spoke, the sheer emotional weight of her confession, the vulnerability in her gaze, caused a faint, almost imperceptible flicker of crimson in her eyes, a fleeting manifestation of the curse's constant struggle within her. Alpha Cale's golden eyes sharpened, catching the subtle flicker. He watched her for a long moment, then slowly rose from his throne. The Crimson Curse, he stated, his voice now devoid of harshness, filled instead with a solemn understanding. It is a blight we thought contained to your lineage, Alpha Rhys. To hear of its transfer, its amplification, it is a grave matter indeed. It threatens the very balance of our world. He turned to a group of elders seated near him, their faces etched with centuries of wisdom. They murmured amongst themselves, their expressions grave. After a long consultation, Cale turned back to Rhys and Lyra. The Sunstone is not a simple cure. It is a conduit of pure solar energy, capable of purification, yes, but also of immense destruction if wielded improperly. It demands absolute purity of intent and an unyielding will. For one who harbors such darkness within, the process would be excruciating. It would burn the curse from you, but the painer, it could break your mind, shatter your essence. It would be a battle for your very existence. He looked at Lyra, his gaze piercing. Are you truly willing to face that? Lyra met his gaze, her jaw set, her eyes burning with a fierce, desperate resolve. I am. I will endure anything to be free of this curse, to be truly myself again. Alpha Cale studied her for another moment, then slowly nodded. Very well. The Sunstone will reveal all. If you are truly Lyra, if the curse is merely a parasitic entity, then the Sunstone will purify. If the darkness has consumed you entirely, then the stone will incinerate it, and you with it. His words were a chilling confirmation of the immense risk she was taking. The ritual will commence at the peak of the next solar eclipse. Only then is the Sunstone's power most potent, its light purest. Until then, you will remain within our sanctuary, under strict observation." The news brought a mixture of relief and renewed fear. The waiting period was agonizing. Lyra spent her days in meditation, preparing herself mentally and spiritually for the harrowing ordeal. Rhys remained by her side, a constant source of strength and comfort, his presence a silent promise of unwavering support. They trained together, Lyra learning to focus her inner strength, to push back against the curse's whispers, to cling to the memories of who she was, who she wanted to be. The Sunstone Pack, though still wary, slowly began to regard her with a cautious respect, observing her quiet determination, her fierce fight for control. The day of the solar eclipse arrived, an ominous yet hopeful event. The sky, usually a vibrant blue in Sunstone territory, was a pale, anemic gray, a somber canvas for the cosmic ballet about to unfold. The air was thick with anticipation, heavy with the scent of ancient rituals and sacred power. The Sunstone Pack gathered in their sacred amphitheater, their faces etched with a mixture of reverence and solemn dread. The Sunstone itself was revealed, housed within a towering, ancient stone structure at the pinnacle of their highest cliff. It was a massive, multifaceted crystal, glowing with an internal, golden light, even in the subdued daylight. Its radiant warmth permeated the air, a stark contrast to the oppressive chill the curse brought. Its light pulsed with a silent, primal energy, pure and untainted. Lyra stood before the Sunstone, stripped of all adornment save for a simple white ceremonial tunic. Her skin was pale, her expression calm, but her body trembled almost imperceptibly with a profound mixture of fear and resolute determination. Rhys stood beside her, his hand briefly squeezing hers in a gesture of silent support, his storm-colored eyes conveying a world of love and desperate hope. Alpha Kale, joined by his own high priestess, a woman of serene power, began the ritual. Their voices rose in a powerful chant, invoking the light of the sun, calling upon the purest energies of creation to cleanse and purify. As the moon slowly began to eclipse the sun, casting an eerie, twilight gloom over the land, the Sunstone's glow intensified, burning with a blinding, golden light that pierced through the encroaching darkness. Lyra felt the raw, pure energy of the Sunstone wash over her, a searing, cleansing fire that penetrated deep into her very essence. It was a pain unlike any she had ever known, 1,000 suns burning within her veins, incinerating the darkness that had coiled within her for so long. The curse roared, a silent, internal scream of pure agony and defiance, thrashing wildly within her, fighting against the cleansing light. Her body convulsed, sweat pouring from her skin, her muscles clenching in a silent battle. She tasted blood, felt the searing agony of her very being purged. The crimson eyes tried to reassert themselves, blazing with malevolent fury, but the Sunstone's light was too strong. It burned them, pushing them back, stripping away the layers of corruption. She felt the curse trying to lash out, to defend itself, but its power was being systematically consumed, devoured by the relentless, pure light. Lyra screamed, a primal sound of utter torment and spiritual warfare, collapsing to her knees, her body racked with convulsions. Rhys, watching from the periphery, his heart tearing with every silent agony she endured, felt her pain as if it were his own. He wanted to rush to her, to hold her, to scream for them to stop, but he knew this was her only chance. He clenched his fists, his jaw tight, his own internal wolf howling in protest, but he remained rooted, a silent pillar of support, his focus entirely on her, pouring his strength, his love, into her being. The eclipse reached its peak, plunging the world into an unnatural twilight. The sunstone pulsed, its golden light now blindingly bright, radiating pure, untainted solar energy. Lyra's body arched, a final agonizing spasm. The curse, with a final, chilling wail that resonated not through the air, but through Lyra's very soul, retreated, shriveling, burning away into nothingness, like a shadow consumed by an inferno. She felt it, the final agonizing tear, the ripping away of a part of herself, a part that had been alien and terrifying, but had, for so long, been irrevocably intertwined with her. And then, silence. The pain receded, replaced by a profound, blissful emptiness. The sunstone's glow softened, returning to its usual radiant warmth. The eclipse slowly began to pass, and the sun's light returned to the land. Lyra lay still, utterly still, sprawled on the stone, her chest heaving, her body soaked in sweat and tears, her muscles aching from the intense spiritual struggle. She slowly opened her eyes. They were clear, undeniably brown, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, they were free. The crimson was gone. The whispers were gone. The malevolence was gone. She felt light, pure, free. Rhys rushed to her side, his heart pounding, his hands gently turning her over. He saw her eyes, clear and luminous, filled with an indescribable peace. And then, a profound relief washed over him, bringing tears to his own eyes. "Lyra," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion, pulling her into his arms, holding her tightly, impossibly tightly, as if to make sure she was truly real, truly whole. She clung to him, sobbing, not from pain, but from overwhelming relief, from the sheer, unimaginable joy of finally being free. "It's gone, Rhys," she choked out, her voice weak, but filled with an incredible wonder. "It's really gone." Alpha Kale approached them, his golden eyes filled with a quiet reverence. "The sunstone has cleansed her," he announced to his pack, his voice ringing with triumph. "The crimson curse is no more. Lyra, Priestess of Stone Haven, is free." A cheer, cautious at first, then swelling into a thunderous roar, erupted from the Sunstone pack. Their fear had been replaced by awe, their wariness by respect. They saw not a monster, but a survivor, a beacon of hope, a woman who had faced unimaginable darkness and emerged victorious. The journey back to Stone Haven was marked by a new kind of lightness. Lyra felt like a new person, shedding the heavy cloak of shame and dread. Her wolf form, while still powerful, was no longer tinged with darkness. Its fur was a rich, deep brown, its eyes a clear, intelligent amber. She ran beside Rhys, her spirits soaring, finally able to fully embrace the connection they shared, unburdened by the curse. News of the Sunstone's cleansing spread, reaching even the most remote packs. Lyra's story became a legend in its own right, a testament to resilience, to the triumph of spirit over insidious darkness. She was no longer just the destined Luna, she was the survivor, the woman who had faced the monster within and emerged whole. The whispers in Stone Haven faded, replaced by murmurs of admiration and genuine respect. The children, once fearful, now looked at her with awe, their eyes reflecting the wonder of her extraordinary journey. Lyra fully embraced her role as Luna of the Stone Haven pack, her priestess magic now stronger, purer, uncorrupted by the curse. She healed, she guided, she nurtured, her presence a balm to her pack. Her bond with Rhys deepened, becoming a powerful, unbreakable force, forged in the fires of shared suffering and ultimate triumph. They had faced unimaginable odds, had looked into the abyss of true darkness, and had emerged together, stronger, wiser, their love a beacon against any shadow. Years passed. Lyra and Rhys led the Stone Haven pack into an era of unprecedented prosperity and peace. Their bond as Alpha and Luna was revered, a symbol of hope and resilience throughout the shifter world. They had pups, strong and healthy, their eyes clear and free of any crimson flicker, a living testament to the curse's final demise. Lyra often returned to the moonlit jail, not with fear, but with a quiet reverence. It was a monument to her past, a reminder of the darkness she had faced. She would sit within its ancient walls, now a place of calm and reflection, feeling the quiet hum of the lunar energy, remembering the battle she had fought, the demon she had wrestled. She would reflect on the chilling words the curse had projected, destroy. She never knew if it was Lyra's desperate plea or the curse's final manipulative act, but it no longer mattered. She had survived. She was the savior who had become the monster. But in doing so, she had found a deeper strength, a more profound understanding of herself, and an unwavering love that had pulled her from the brink. Her destiny had been clear, but life, as it often does, had had other plans. It didn't shatter, it transferred. And in that terrifying transfer, Lyra had faced her greatest fear, had walked through the shadow, and had truly found herself. She was not just the Luna. She was the woman who carried the memory of the monster, and in doing so, became an unbreakable force of light, forever free. The story of Lyra, the Luna who had fought the curse and won, became an enduring legend, whispered not with fear, but with awe and inspiration, across generations of shifters.